Joining us now from Tel Aviv this morning is Tom Nides. He served as the U.S. ambassador to Israel from 2021 to 2023. Mr. Ambassador, good to have you with us once again. And let me pick up right where we left off with Christina saying, look, there is this negotiation taking place, maybe not one through talks, but a piece of paper being passed back and forth through a Pakistani intermediary. I think there is this open question. If these two sides could come to some sort of agreement, would Israel give it its imprimatur, its blessing? And I'm curious how you're thinking through that, how Israel is playing a role here in these efforts to negotiate some sort of prolonged ceasefire here between these two fighting parties.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a beautiful day in Tel Aviv. So, and I look outside at the beach right now. It seems like some things are quite normal, but obviously we're not living in normal times. Listen, I think if we just step back from it, at the end of the day, we're going to get an agreement. Okay, one way or the other. An agreement is going to look very similar to the JCPOA. Mm-hmm. It is just the facts. I mean, we can dress it up and talk about it in different ways. At the end of the day, that's what's going to happen. And the Israelis will maybe reluctantly have to agree to it. At the end of the day, there's no question the military, both the IDF and the U.S. military, has done an enormous amount of damage to the IRGC and, as President Trump has talked about, to a lot of their military capacity. But it's still a massive threat. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the president is going to have to figure out a way to come to the table. And it will look very similar to what we negotiated in 2015. They'll dress it up and call it something else, but it will look quite similar, and the Israelis will go along with that.
Do you think whatever is negotiated the second time around will be as durable as that initial agreement? I mean, that was done over months and months and had a lot of international buy-in. It also had a lot of nuclear and diplomatic expertise. And one of the criticisms of these negotiations has been that those technical experts have not really been involved until now, although Axios is reporting that Steve Witkoff did meet with some nuclear technical experts here in the U.S. This week, perhaps to bolster some of those negotiations. But what is your take on the effectiveness of this second deal, if and when it does happen, and how does the fact that Iran can now shut the Gulf almost at will complicate the durability of that?
Listen, I don't want to be the, a critical, person sitting around. These negotiations are difficult, and they were difficult for us during the Obama administration, and they're difficult for the Trump administration. The Iranians just don't give up. They are aggressive. It was a 195-page agreement that was worked out over almost 2 years between the Obama administration and the Iranians, including, as you point out, many of our European allies. So I don't want to be this guy to say this is easy. It isn't easy. And that's why, quite frankly, some of us were quite frustrated when the agreement was, in fact, torn up. Endured? I don't know. I mean, this is as you know, this is kind of a trust me agreement, regardless of what was done by Obama or by Trump, with a lot of sanctions in place. So I think ultimately my hope is that they will come to an agreement that's strong and will eliminate much of the threat. But none of us should be surprised. This is very, very complicated, and it's going to take a lot of time, which they need to put into it.
I want to play a bit of sound here. Christina mentioned that we heard from a senior military advisor to the Iranian supreme leader in recent hours. CNN sat down with him. CNN also did an interview with Lebanon's president as well. Let me play a bit of sound from what he had to say to CNN.
President Trump said that he would be honored to meet the supreme leader.
This will not happen. Right now, we are in the first stage of negotiations, and Mr. Trump has brought the negotiations to a standstill. This will not happen.
IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, that they don't agree with this, they don't approve this agreement, what happened. It's not your country, it's our country. It's our obligation. It's not your job to interfere into our country.
Our control room did exactly what I couldn't imagine us doing, but did it perfectly, to hear those back to back, because I think that this dynamic is really interesting here. The way that Iran is saying Lebanon is a real linchpin issue here in terms of getting to a deal. And then you have Lebanon kind of pushing back on that, saying they're not going to play that role. They're not in that position.
It's not our country. It's your country.
Yeah. How do you process what's been happening here? We had this kind of draft agreement that the U.S. provided to kind of stop that fighting between Israel and Lebanon. Of course, Hezbollah, the proxy there, that's the target of Israel and doing the bulk of this fighting here. How do you see all of this playing out?
Well, listen, you guys know this because you've been covering this. This is really complicated, okay? The northern part of Israel, for those of your viewers who don't follow this that closely, is being bombarded by Hezbollah constantly. So when the prime minister says there's a huge threat in the north part of Israel, he's 100% correct, right? And Hezbollah has no interest in necessarily stopping. So the threat is real. That said, there's no question that Israel's continued to be pushing inside of Lebanon has caused an enormous amount of friction. Here's the dirty little secret. The Iranians control Hezbollah. And the moment the Iranians decide that this is part of the negotiations, that will be the end of the fighting with Hezbollah, and ultimately the fighting will end with Israel. As we all know, everything is linked. Iran is very much focused on the proxies. We're very much focused on getting a deal with the Iranians. Hezbollah is trying to wait this game as long as they can. So in this part of the world, which I'm sitting in right now, it's really complicated.
What is your assessment of the leadership in Tehran is left, what their command and control is over these proxy groups, including Hezbollah, including Houthis? Like, if they say stop fighting, is that something they can execute and will be followed?
Yeah, it's significant. I think none of us should misunderstand. Yeah, is the chain of command and communications hurting a bit since the the Americans took out much of the leadership? Sure. But as we have proven by what happened in Gaza, what will happen at Hezbollah and the Houthis, whoever controls the money generally controls the action on the ground. Are they some independent actors? Without question, but make no mistake, the Iranians are in charge, and they can control much of the proxies in the region if they so choose to do it.
You have a lot of perspective, professional perspective, historical perspective. You have geographic proximity right now to the Israeli leadership. And I want to ask you just for your assessment of that relationship between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump. So the week began with this leaked phone call that President Trump spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu and called him crazy with an adjectival modifier I'm not going to say here on air. Sarah Eisen at CNBC, when interviewed Prime Minister Netanyahu, he indicated that indeed that was the color of the conversation. It was an intense conversation that he had with the president, but he's tried to say, look, we have a frank relationship. We have calls like this every couple of days. In this mix, in this complicated mix that you've been talking about, what's your sense of the level of support that Prime Minister Netanyahu has from President Trump and his administration, and indeed how much influence he has over it now almost 100 days into this conflict in the Middle East?
Well, I think it's two things. I watched this with Joe Biden. I mean, the amount of times that Joe Biden hung up on Bibi Netanyahu and the screaming match that took place was probably too many to count, okay? I don't think that President Trump has any different relationship than Joe Biden did. That does not mean that President Trump is not supportive of the prime minister, but make no mistake, the prime minister needs the United States. It needs our support. It needs our military support. It needs our intelligence support. So there's no question when President Trump's goal is very simple. He wants the war to end. And when he just feels that what the prime minister is doing impedes that, obviously gets quite frustrated. And by the way, the Iranians aren't stupid. They knew exactly what they were doing when they decided that the conversations were done with Trump because of Hezbollah. And they knew exactly if they said that, the President Trump would pick up the phone and call the prime minister, and that's exactly what he did. So again, what we should all understand, the Iranians are not stupid, okay? They know how to play this, and they also understand the president rightfully wants to see the end of this war. So the Prime Minister Netanyahu he's kind of caught in between these two vices, and he's going to understand when President Trump says the war is done, he's going to understand the war is done. We're not there yet. I hope that it'll be done soon enough. We're not there, but he will understand that the president's relationship with Israel is very important, as the United States is.
Tom, very quickly here, an unfair question to end with in a time-limited way, but your sense of the timetable here, you hope it ends soon. We have a Pakistani emissary going from Pakistan to Tehran, according to IRNA right now. Your sense of the timing here in the last 30 seconds we have with you?
Listen, I think in the next week or so, I think you're going to get some clear indications here about getting this resolved. I mean, this question about the money can be worked out through a variety of different ways. The bigger issue, by the way, they're talking about is they're kicking the can on the issue about the disposal of the canisters that happen to be sitting in Iran, which contain a lot of, uranium. So that hasn't even been discussed. The idea of giving them some money to get them to the table is sort of kind of missing the larger point. But I think ultimately the president will be motivated to get this resolved. And for the region, I hope it does sooner than later.